Testing. Testing. Okay, I've got a little bit of a background noise that I might need to take care of. But we are kicking it off only 2 hours and 15 minutes late after missing 2 weeks. So I guess technically that's 14 days, 2 hours, and 15 minutes late. But we're doing this thing. No later. No later than that. That's the spirit. Okay. Let me deal with that background noise and then I'll be right back with you. Okay. Okay. Here we go. What's it gonna be tonight? Let's see. Okay, I'm looking at the chat here. Dino Blaster says, Eric, you have a protege? I'm sorry. I'm illiterate. I need to learn this word. A prodigy. Protege. There we go. Okay. Not really, no. I have a art genius child who I do not I don't really influence her much at all, I don't think. I think I just kind of let her figure out what she's doing. I mean, this is a conversation that I've gone through with some artist friends of mine about like just how much do you direct your children who have artistic inclinations, right? Like, are you going to mess them up by like leading them astray, or by like expecting too much, or by like, um, just some kind of like false impression? Sometimes children get that like external validation type thing. Uh, this is what my dad would want me to do, right? Um, and so like I'm very cognizant of that and trying not to uh, mislead or mess up her development as an artist. However, that being said, then I have this other nagging voice that's like, no, like if you have any kind of knowledge or direction, um, this is your child. This is your responsibility not to withhold. Uh, you know, so it's a fine line to navigate, I think, and I think that actual instructors, um, experienced instructors, have some more, well, experience, have a better grasp, I think, on where how to navigate that line um, between influence and kind of allowing someone to flourish and discover things uh, by their own right, I guess. So anyway, how I'm looking at it now with my kid is that she just naturally does these crazy things. Like, um, she'll just get an idea in her head, like, I'm going to make a horse. And then she goes and sources material. She'll rummage through the recycling bin and get cardboard, old pizza boxes, whatever. And then she'll like just start throwing things together, and like legitimately made this three-dimensional, like actual uh the body had volume to it, like that, like I mean the uh, chest cavity and whatever you call it, or anatomy of a horse. But it was this like three-dimensional standing up horse thing, and I had zero involvement in it. But then there are times where I'm thinking like, okay, I can kind of direct just a little bit. We did some stop motion animation. That was fun with Legos. That was her Christmas present a little while ago. Anyway, yeah. So protege, is that the right way? I'm just proving how ignorant I am. Protege, that's the word. I would love to have a more of a community of artists that are in conversation with each other, um, and to bring along younger artists. I would love that. Um, Actually, doing that, I think, is maybe not as challenging as it needs, or as it could be, I guess. But it seems that um, I don't know. Maybe I'm a perfectionist, and I think like, well, don't bother starting something unless you know how to finish it, right? But maybe that's just the wrong mentality. There have been a few young artists that have reached out um, to get some advice, and hopefully, again, with the like understanding that I'm not necessarily an instructor. Uh, Hopefully, the direction that was given was beneficial and something that didn't send them, prematurely down the wrong paths. Dino Blaster. I have a sneaking suspicion that you are in the Discord channel that I post this stuff into. But I lack either the... I don't know. I'm not piecing it together right now. There's probably the same name in the in the Discord channel. Okay, what am I doing here? I think I need a new layer with like a middle gray. That is too. Let's go like a bluish. That, and I want something maybe. This has got a decent mix of softness and texture. So try this brush. It doesn't perform super well at high resolution, but looking at the chat. I think you have the chops to instruct for sure. No, sorry, I just found your channel a while ago and watch while I draw. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm always excited, to think that people could just be generating their own content, while I do these. I have this, this nagging suspicion or whatever that you're just kind of like performing or something for entertainment, and that is fine. Like the assumption that anyone watching this kind of content is an artist, I don't think is necessarily accurate, because I think some people do just find it enjoyable. But for artists, like I just have to put myself in those shoes, like when I'm watching a video, I feel guilty usually. I feel like I should be producing something, not just enjoying this as entertainment. And I wonder how much of that is healthy or not. You know what I mean? Like, is that the kind of insidious demand of productivity that, like, my time must be applied to something that's moving the ball forward 100% of the time? Or is this a healthy thing that's saying, hey, look, you enjoy this, but the reason you're watching this really is so that you can get better at what you're doing, and the only way to get better is to do it. So I do tend to have that kind of approach to things, or that kind of thinking, and I don't want to impose that on anybody, but I do want to encourage, just like you said, to be drawing, sketching away while you got something playing in the background. I think it's just so much more helpful to any artist who's looking at it the way that I'm looking at it, that you want to improve. And that's kind of why you're consuming the content, that the invitation is out there to pick up the sketchbook and just go. You said you're doing figure drawing. Are you in classes, or is this are you a working professional? I guess I'm asking, where are you in your experience? You know, are you doing this for fun? I suppose we kind of all are, in a way. We make these things because we want to. Dino Blaster. Is that a Turok reference? My dad introduced me to Turok when we were kids. We went to this fair, and a booth across from us had old comic books. And so he dug out some Turok and got him. Introduced me and my brother to, gave them to my brother. And then a couple years later, they came out with a Turok game on Nintendo 64, I think. And we played that to death. I think what I'm going to do here is turn this brush on its side a little bit. I think it may have shape dynamics. Angle is by pen pressure. Let's do by initial direction. And then we'll adjust that. That's something like that. Yeah. Just thinking about these shapes here, and I don't like them. So I want to change them. But I think what I really need to do is simplify rather than make it too complex. One moment, I need to sneeze. I'm going to mute myself. Okay. That's a good sneeze. Sorry you missed it. And that was a good lemon ginger tea. So looking at the chat, just working on fundamentals. Yeah. Yeah, it's a great place to be. It's amazing how much comes back to that. I was thinking about it today, actually. I was thinking about how much you don't think about the things that you've spent so much time working on and just how important they are. You know? Like once you've got a pretty good grasp of anatomy, I'm not saying you don't have to think about it again or you don't, you know, but it's amazing how much just comes naturally because you cultivated that skill. You took the time early on. kind of like playing an instrument. You know what I mean? Like if you're constantly struggling over, um, you know, the fingering on an instrument or whatever, it's like, well, you know, if you just taking the time to get it down, you know, have the right kind of, what's the term, posture, you'll save yourself so much grief later on, you know. So yeah, that's great, and you know, it's funny. I've made this argument before. Well, I shouldn't say I've made the argument. I have pontificated over this before. That we have this almost religious view of the fundamentals in art. You know, like well, it depends, I guess, what camp you fall in, because there certainly are camps that discourage a what would you call it? Calculated, measured approach to creativity. There's the camp that thinks that is destructive. I would disagree. I see the merits in creating exploratory work. I guess, you know, taking things a different angle. There's the idea of being a faithful practitioner of a style, and then there's the idea of being a kind of explorer, intrepid explorer on a quest to find those little magic golden nuggets, whatever it is, that elusive thing that people are looking for in art. Okay, I think that there is some valid claim there. Okay, I don't think that that's just totally nutso. But I do think that we do ourselves a disservice by skipping over the fundamentals. I think what it is essentially, I know I've used this analogy before, but it's the roadmap, right? If you have a map of a city and you are taught a shortcut, but you don't know where the roads lead, then that shortcut might take you somewhere, but you are lost. So it's really important to just get the lay of the land, you know, gain a basic understanding of anatomy, you know, form, just draftsmanship, color theory, those kind of things. You know, it's a great place to be. The last place you want to be is I have an idea but cannot execute on it. You don't want to be there. It's possible, you know, that is let's say, a legitimate place to be in terms of having a concept that is going to require you to grow to execute on. That's kind of the project-based approach, and I think that there's value in that. But again, more often than not, I think the information is there. It's available. We just didn't make use of it, and or didn't want to develop the skill. So didn't want to take the time necessary to develop the skill. Put it that way. What is this guy talking about? Just yapping about whatever comes to mind. This Eric guy. just intolerable. Tell you what, if you don't like listening to yourself talk, commit to doing a live stream every week. And then you'll remember why. See, looking at the chat again. I've seen it compared to grammar, syntax, vocabulary, like how you can how can you construct a sentence or a poem without an understanding of how language works? The fundamentals are the visual language of image creation, or so I've heard. Yes, yeah, I think that's true. Generally speaking, I think there are some things that we consider fundamentals that are more topical. Like I do think anatomy is necessary if you want to draw, people, animals, any kind of living things. A lot of the anatomical principles, there are correlations, from one to another. I mean, from people to animals and all different classes of animals. You could start to see things as like, oh, okay, that's kind of a similar structure. But I think it's topical, right? Like or thematic, right? Like if that's the thing you want to illustrate or communicate in your work, then it's just something you need to understand. And I guess this is kind of the same thing, like in rhetoric. Like if you were going to write an essay, give a speech, whatever, and it was on a certain topic, you need to know something about that topic, right? And it's just one of those common things. Living creatures, people, those are all they're just common topics in art. Some of the other things I would say fall much more into that building block language of the visual language, syntax of the visual language. We'll put it that way. It's funny using that language as an analogy and like just totally failing to find the right language to describe it. But yeah, I would subscribe to that way of thinking about the visual language. I think it's accurate. I think it's kind of a generally universal thing. When I say generally universal, I mean there are things that are cross-cultural, and then there are some things that are cultural. There's a heritage of how some visual art forms were developed, and kind of associative meanings with colors and symbols and that sort of thing. But generally speaking, it's there are a lot of kind of correlations, I guess. Things that do span cultures. Okay. But yeah, I would tend to subscribe to the visual language description. I almost think it's not even really an analogy. I want to use the word analogy, but I think it is actually um, kind of literal. Our verbal language really is just chirps and grunts and you know otherwise audible nonsense. But we ascribe meaning to it, and again, languages differ the world over, but there are some things that a harsh sound is a harsh sound, right? Uh, Being soft spoken is, I think, universal. There might be cultural associations as to how that's valued, right? Like, does one culture value, kind of boldness over timidity, or? But I think we perceive it pretty similarly, regardless. I could have someone set me straight on that, tell me I'm completely wrong, but yeah, I think there's some universality to it. That's lagging a little bit there. This would be a great time to get a sip of tea. Ah, delicious. Okay, note to self, stop using this brush at such a large scale. It's not a good thing. Not a good thing, friend. Alright, so we'll switch to the sinful onion. No, actually, how about this Turpish? The Turpish brush. Kind of like Terp, but kind of not. So, Eric, how is that like turpentine? Well, now that I kind of drag it around, it doesn't really feel like it much at all, does it? Yeah, Photoshop moment, that's right. Yeah, well, to be fair, if you look up here, we're looking at this image at 6.25% of its actual size. This is intended to be able to print at 7 feet across at 300 dpi. Smaller, of course, at a higher resolution. You can go up, 1400, whatever. You can go pretty high and get some nice results for like fine art prints. And so I tend to do that for these so that in the case that you know, I like the painting. I can actually do something with it rather than just have a little, you know, small file that will only ever be viewed on a, you know, a cell phone screen or something. And then the size of this brush is pretty large. You know, that's, what did I say? This is like, this could be printed 7 feet across. So if this is a, you know, let's just say we're doing 600 DPI. So this is 3.5 feet across. Then, you know, that's a massive brush. Okay. I went from like pretending to do math and figuring out the scale to, I'm not even going to bother. Anyway, it's big. So it is asking a lot. And then when I get into smudging, especially at scale, at a large scale like that, then it's not fair to Photoshop to say, oh, it's being ridiculous. It's like, well, I'm kind of asking too much. You're being unreasonable, Eric. Even Photoshop needs a break sometimes. Okay. I'm trying to do this without zooming in and out as much as I normally do, you know, which means that kind of my evaluative method is not going to be the same. So I think what I'm going to do is just step back from this, have a look at it, and then I'll make some decisions from there. But I'm trying to go kind of free form, not too planned. Yeah, so I'm going to take one step back and have a look at this from like 6 feet away. Okay, so I'm going to do a new layer here and just start painting on top of this. I like what I have enough that I don't want to completely destroy it, you know, but I also want to have the freedom to just kind of paint whatever, you know. So if I'm painting over top of this, so be it. What's lost is lost. And I guess I'm doing it on a separate layer for insurance sake. But generally, as that has gone in the past, I probably won't go back to what I did before anyway. Sometimes I do that evaluatively, like I'll hide the layer, have a look, and just see, you know, did the changes I make, did they do what I thought they were going to do? And sometimes there's some negotiation, there's a give and take, but it's typically not worth the effort to try to find the middle ground. You just say, okay, here's what has changed, and maybe some new direction that I can squeeze out of this, but I'm not going to. Can't really marry two different directions sometimes. Sometimes they are just too far apart to bring together. What am I talking about? It's like, this guy's always just speaking in riddles. They should make a super villain about that. I don't know. I don't think the Riddler really made it into super villain category. He's a villain, right? Sorry to all the mega Riddler fans out there. I don't mean to downplay your hero. Just didn't think he was that big of a deal. Oh, I ended up on the background somehow. Must have pressed some hotkeys. What is it with this guy pressing the hotkeys? Gotta cool your jets, Dr. Hotkey. Riddle me this, Batman. I don't actually know enough about the Riddler. What does he? What? I mean, he's funny, right? Isn't that his? Is that his thing? He's supposed to be funny. I don't know. I gotta be careful making fun of. Well, first of all, making fun of any kind of supervillain is dangerous territory. But especially the ones that I don't know anything about. You know, like I should probably do my research before I write them off. Let's see. I think I'm just going to start throwing some color into this because I can. So we've got a lot of dark, there's a lot of black in here, and then there's some white, right? So I think we'll bring the white down. We'll bring the black up. Get a little more gray going on. And we do want the separation between lights and darks, like clear delineated shapes. I don't want to break that too much, but I do want to get perhaps some just softer kind of transitions. And then, so now that we've raised the darks and lowered the whites, we can add more color. So maybe the first thing to do, we'll just do like a solid color fill. And, you could do like overlay or something like that, but I'm thinking pin light, because it's only really going to affect certain areas. And then you see how we get this like weird effect here where this is probably gray, but it almost appears to be like a teal blue because it's contrasted against that other tone there. We're going to do another solid color. We'll just throw that right in the middle. We'll do, I think we need to do something that's going to bring those light values down. So that's either going to be like a multiply, but I'm thinking maybe difference We can like lower the fill. No, let's do we'll do multiply, or let's do this darker color, and then we'll just go up to white, so that's all we get, and then we'll start to bring it down. And then we can just lower the opacity so that we still get a little bit of blending, but we're kind of pushing everything a little darker. This one too, maybe lower the opacity on that. Well, actually, I kind of like it. Kind of like it. Okay, so now let's do a color balance, then we'll do some curves. We may repeat this, and it's really just to start adding, like layering in some tonal hue shifts and stuff as we kind of move around the canvas. Move around the value scale really is the technically what's happening. Something like that. Oh, we put that under this on accident. Is that going to make a difference? Kind of does. Yeah, we'll put that up there. Put it down below. Yeah, we'll put it back up there. And then again, maybe kind of go somewhere in there. Let's do curves. We already have a curves, right? But we can start to adjust this a little bit, bring out some areas. Okay, do another color balance. And I'm thinking maybe the shadows need to be reinforced as a warmer tone again. Bring our mids to probably something, thinking cool, but maybe neutral. I often like to bring magentas into the mids. It just tends to make things juicy. What does that even mean? These things juicy. This guy talking about? Make things juicy. Juicy. It's like he learned all of his art lingo working the smoothie stand or the lemonade stand at the county fair. And he thinks he can be a YouTuber. All right, so we've established some color changes. We're going to bring in a gray that's ever so slightly blue, but not really. It's just kind of a dark middle gray. Now let's go a little bit lighter up in there. And we could probably bring all this down in value, being as it is background and everything. Doesn't need to be that loud. Speaking of being loud, I've been reminiscing lately. My children, I love them. They make noise. And my wife and I were talking about this recently, and I thought, you know what? I remember being really loud, particularly on these car rides. And there was a dude, Steve, bless his heart. who put up with us for years, me and my brothers and our friends, just being loud and obnoxious. And it's humbling to look back and go, yeah, they put up with a lot, and I was super annoying. So, guess I can take my turn putting up with things, right? Putting up with it, that's one, I guess. Learning to be less annoyed by things that don't need to be. Don't need to be something we're particular about. Bite into a nice painting and watch the juice flow. You heard it here first, folks. Uh, I suppose I am obligated to say don't bite paintings. Um, okay, obligation satisfied. Yes, this is not the kind of juicy that satisfies thirst. It's the kind of juicy that instantly brings you to tears and brings out existential existential wonderings, musings. That's the Eric Elwell promise, as they say. Just full disclosure, nobody says that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, don't eat paint. I think somebody tried that. I think Van Gogh was a paint eater. And I do believe it killed him. I might just be making that up. Man, what if this was the end? You know, like just all this, you know, the YouTube crackdown on misinformation. Well, you gave a bunch of really bad art history information, and also you gave some uh, bad health information about whether or not to eat paints with heavy metals in them. So we're pulling the plug. You're a liability, Elwell. In all seriousness, though, nobody from YouTube's ever going to talk to me about anything. So it's fun. It's fun to pontificate and joke about, but who do we think we are here? All right, I think I want to drop this down a level. So I may have mentioned this before, but when I live stream, I start to, sometimes I get these moments of like, hey, remember that time that you said that thing that, uh, you know, you regret, or that time that you totally failed? Remember that? You know, just these things they just pop in your head when you're live streaming. It's just a natural part of the process. And anyway, the one that comes to mind now is there was one time I met an artist whose work I really liked it, and it was at a show convention, but I really didn't bring any money. I didn't intend to purchase art here, which, by the way, I wouldn't call it a pro tip necessarily, but just if you've never thought about it, if you go to a show where people are selling things, particularly people that you respect, just consider maybe bringing something to show your appreciation and support of their work. Anyway, I didn't, and I'm talking with this guy, and we had a good conversation. A couple of mutual, acquaintances that are kind of talking about, oh, you're connected to so and so. That's cool. I met them. Blah blah blah, whatever. All this kind of making these fun connections, and then it kind of came to like, so am I gonna buy something or not, right? And instead of just being honest and saying, I really like your work, but I didn't come prepared to buy anything. Just kind of looked at his work, and I was like, I should. And I picked one up, and I was like, nah. I was just like, oh man, that totally sent the opposite message that I intended to send. Well, I can't really say that I intended to send anything other than I liked his work and wanted to support it, but I couldn't. So anyway, that's my shameful memory of the moment when I threw all social credibility down the drain on stupid little gaff. Social credibility with one artist and with everyone who's listening to this, who's hearing the story and going, ugh, terrible, pathetic Eric. What is it? What is it that makes us remember our cringiest moments? Is it just like, is it some wicked self doubt, or is it a self defense mechanism like, hey, survive this one because remember that time that you were an idiot? Because I do, you know? Anyway, there you go. Tea time. Yeah, looking at the chat here, the spontaneous recollection of memories is truly a thing of mystery. That well spoken. That is true. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Makes you wonder what makes you wonder. Hmm. How are the anatomy, figure drawing sketches coming along? Are you going for gesture, something quick and emotive, getting the emotion and posture? Posture. That's not the right. I'm thinking the attitude. That's what I mean. It's like a good gesture is gesture drawing is all about what is happening and what is being thought and what is what is the force of this moment, this figure, versus studying anatomy, which would be more linkages and muscles and hard points. The flexing and contraction of muscles, that sort of thing. Yeah, so how's it going? when uh, when enough paint is on the canvas, when enough color variation is here, something starts to happen. You start to perceive things, intended or not. Doesn't really matter. They're just, you see them, so they're there. And then you have to ask yourself, do you want it to be there? Should it be that way? What does this mean? And that's one of the things I really enjoy about this kind of process. You know, it's just, at some point, you're responding to just shapes of color and starting to ascribe meaning to them. And it just, to me, is kind of what, I guess that's kind of what painting is. But it just seems so it's just so weird. It's so kind of mysterious, right? That like a couple blobs of digital ink, you can even call it that, just a shape of color, makes you think and perceive it a certain way. Is it stone? Is it snow? Are these little buildings? You know, what I see is an eroding landscape. I don't know. You might see something totally different. But then there's this sense that you're going to have to bring order to it. Make it make sense. looking back at the chat, I was doing time drawings like 30 seconds for 20 minutes, then a minute for 20, then a minute for 20 minutes, and now I'm just copying figure drawing for all it's worth. The construction mannequin. The time poses were just like a combination of gestural underlay and constructive overlay, I suppose. I'm just doing what I'm doing. Yeah. Yeah. Not everything has to be perfectly structured or academic. I do think that those videos or sessions that have it set up in timing does it does yield a good result. I find that limitations often require you to be resourceful, to be cognizant of what it is you're trying to accomplish within those limitations, and that can be a great thing. So. Learning art feels like walking around in the dark with self-learning. Can't afford art school or mentorship, so just using what I can find on the web. Well, there's a lot of really good stuff on the internet. I would recommend Marco Bucci, Proco, Schoolism. It's good. New Masters Academy. It's great. There's a lot of good stuff out there. You can get really affordable classes with Marshall Vandruff. I think that's marshallart.com. Marshall as in Marshall. He is an instructor and a very experienced one. And he teaches at community college. But I say but as if, community college means that it's not top of the line. There's just, there's an impression about community colleges. That being said, his work is absolutely, his work as an instructor is absolutely excellent. Um, and I have had experience with, learning self-taught and with instructors. It's kind of been a long journey. I'll spare you the long breakdown, but the gist of it is that I did a lot of learning on my own, but that I think required some humility to seek out and listen to um, those that had experience, right? And I found that there was really excellent teaching at all kind of different levels of the academic strata. I struggling to find the right words, but basically, there is a perception that there's like really fine schools, and while that is true, there are great schools that teach with excellent methods and hire great teachers and have high standards. While that is true, there are instructors just as good in the strangest of places. And I'm thinking of Dave Higgins is a painter that I met at community college. So I had worked at a factory for a little while, and while I was at the factory, I was taking classes at Academy of Art University. I was taking those classes online. The reason for that was the factory had a employee scholarship program where they would pay for you to take classes. They'd pay for your classes. They would even give you some time off. You're working a factory job, but you get to go to school for free. It wasn't like a full-time school gig, right? Like I had to pace it so that I could do my work. But anyway, so I asked around. I asked some artists, like, "Hey, if you could have gone to any school, where would it be?" And at least one person that I trusted said Academy of Art University. And so that's what I looked into. I looked into a couple other schools, and that was the winner, right? And that's where I ended up going. And I would agree that it was excellent education. And I would say, actually, one of the things that I thought, in retrospect, I didn't realize it at the time, but now I would definitely say they had an excellent delivery for online classes, which is not universal. You would think in this age that we would have great systems integrated, in the online experience. And the reality is that a lot of them are garbage, and I won't really get into why, but there are reasons. But anyway, Academy of Art had a really great delivery for online learning, and I felt it was a really good integration with instructors. Even though it was the online experience, I felt that I was getting instructor time, So fast forward a little bit, I'm working at the factory. That's what's allowing me to take classes at Academy of Art, and then the factory closes. We all get laid off, and I continued my education with Corning Community College. And that's, I'd mentioned Dave. Truthfully, I never took any classes with him. But as you'll find in higher education, or at least in any kind of reasonable higher education, um, instructors will make themselves available whether you're, their responsibility or not. Generally, that's been my experience. And so I got to know Dave a bit. He's just a great dude, very helpful, very supportive. He's helped me, even though I never had any classes with him. He was one of these guys that he was interested in what I was doing. He's like, "Oh, you're doing digital painting? Yeah, why don't you get that one printed and I'll buy it from you?" That sort of thing. Like really tangible support early on. And actually, before that, I got to say I had done an internship at a video game company, and and now that's going to be hit or miss. I'll say that. That's straight up. You might, if you get an internship, you might be pouring coffee, or you might have real responsibilities. You might have people that want to help you, want to see you grow, and you might have people who want to be left alone. It's really hit or miss. Depends on where you go, the people you get, and I guess that's true of schools too. But my experience with interning, I interned at a little indie company called Garage Games a long time ago. I don't know if they're still around, but if they are, no one that I worked with there is still there. I think that's a completely different generation. But the art director and some of the animators there were really awesome people to work with. It'd be Joe Maroshek, and I'm thinking of Mark McCoy. Really talented people. But anyway, the main thing with that was they took the time. They were genuine, right? It wasn't like an obligation or something. And anyway, what am I getting at here? Our education. There are great instructors all over the place, and it's possible to find it. I think the most important thing is to practice and to work from, at least early on, work from something tangible. Like go out in nature and like draw things, right? Like that you see, trees and how light hits things. And as far as the art principles, I had mentioned like Schoolism, Marco Bucci, online personalities. There's enough there that like get a few of those principles. Like if you just do one on like light and shadow, and then go out in nature and immediately apply those things. That's if there's anything I would harp on, it would be that. Like whatever you're learning, attempt to immediately apply it. Otherwise, you're not really learning it. Like it's kind of in the back of your mind, but if you can work on a project and say, how do I add believable shadows to this thing? And not just believable, but then how do I use that in a way that makes the image more compelling? And I guess that's getting more into like graphic design. So now you're combining two things. You're saying, here's a natural effect that um, makes something believable as a representational work. And then here's an abstract idea that now I can combine these two things and make something both believable and aesthetically uh, appealing and lead the viewer's eye in a way that I want. So that's what I would recommend. Start by um, mostly by doing, um, and yeah, as far as the who you can trust, there's a lot of stuff out there that's not great, but I would say that generally speaking, you're not going to find, well, I don't know. I want to be careful about saying that. I'm thinking you're not going to find people that will lead you so far astray that it's like irrecoverable or whatever. But I do think there's a lot of just material that's a waste of time, in my opinion. Let me see what you have said in the chat. I paid for a year of schoolism when it was on sale like a year and a half ago, but I was not advanced enough to go through the material with any real understanding. It took weeks to go through a lesson. So I've just been chugging and made sure to get in my daily hours and getting more solid foundation to get a better understanding so I can do more advanced lessons. I was just novice and still am, I feel, but nothing beats having more time spent with a pencil in hand. That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. And I think that, that's interesting that, to have the maturity to realize that, like, hey, I don't really, this isn't the level that I'm at. That actually reminds me, when I was at Garage Games, Joe Maroshak, who's the art director that I had just referenced, he handed me this book. He handed me a couple books. I remember one was Insanely Twisted Rabbits. It was just a book of, like, crazy rabbits. But it was a contest between two animators, two artists that worked together. And they just kind of had this thing going back and forth, like making these crazy creatures. And the one artist, I'm going to butcher his name, but I think it's Michael Gagne. Gagne. I am so sorry for butchering your name, but he published his renditions of these rabbits, and it was a cool book. Really inspirational in just as an art book, right? And then the other book was this animation book. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but it was, I remember him telling me that it was difficult to get a hold of. Pretty rare book. And because I remember when I left, he said you can take, I think he said, like, pick any 2 or 3 books and you can just take them with you. And I picked that one, and he was like, well, I can't replace that one. So I don't know, try something else. But I remembered that book in particular had all the fundamentals in the back of the book. And it was kind of this, I don't want to say tongue-in-cheek, but it was just this, partly a joke, but partly this theory that, like, most people want to get right to the advanced stuff. So we just skip to the back of the book. We skip all the stuff in the beginning that's supposed to be like, oh, that's for noobs, and I want to get into the meat, And it was kind of a point that the author was making, was that the stuff that really matters is that, like, those beginning stages. And so we're gonna put it in the back as if it's the advanced, the conclusion of all of what we're learning, which in a way is actually kind of true. It is the important part. And I don't know, it was okay, maybe it's a gimmick, but it was enough. It was enough for me to actually consider that point. Like, oh, okay, So this artist who's, um, you know, written this uh, animation manifesto that even experienced animators um, cherish, had this point of view that the basic things were the real things, were the most important things. So maybe I should pay attention to that. Right. So yeah, that being said, these advanced concepts, I guess, that you're talking about with schoolism. Um, Maybe that was wise to take a step back. I don't think schoolism is bad by any means. I don't, it's hard to know because I don't know what classes you took. I did schoolism for a little bit. Well, actually, I paid for it for uh, years, and I kind of just jumped from like topic to topic. I did some exercises. I think I did the Robert Kondo um, Daistasumi class, and what else? I can't remember his name. Star Wars concept artist guy. I did his like warm up exercise stuff. And there were a couple other ones that I did. Um, but I just felt like it was good education that was a great price, and so I never wanted to stop paying. Even though I didn't really have time to do the exercises, but I think that it it falls into uh, my feeling with what I'm doing here is what I was explaining earlier about like having that like guilt of you need to be doing something, not just like listening to the content. Um, anyway, let's do. That's interesting. See, it's like almost like a pure gray, but it's coming out almost greenish. I think we need to add a bit of a little bit of red to it to get it to be perceived more as a true gray when it's next to this other kind of orange tone here. Do I even like that? Let me see. If we do it over here. What are your goals with creating art? Is this a just something you love to do and you want to grow the interest and the passion into something um, of a skill set, or are you looking to work professionally? What are you thinking with it? Let's see. That's interesting. Just seeing this value as a, could be used in the light, could be used in the shadow in this other context. I think we'll go with a warm, dark here. All right, let me get back to the chat. I'd like to get my chops with creature design and make realistic science-based aliens and use those themes to make a VR game experience in the vein of dinosaur education that I grew. Okay. Yeah, so and really starting with basic um, anatomy, just like you're saying you're doing, that's I think a great start for that. Um, I'm thinking about that Terrell. I'm gonna butcher her last name. White, which lab? I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to look it up. But she's a schoolism. Uh, am I thinking of the right person? I think she's on schoolism. Anyway, animal anatomy studies, I think, will benefit you there. This is a whole other ball of wax, but I would think with um, you know alien design, part of what's interesting is the possibility of just a completely different set of requirements, for the I want to say the physique of the alien, the anatomy, but I don't know. There's kind of interesting ways to conceptualize what other forms of life, are out there, and could possibly, I don't know, stretch our imaginations on what's possible. I think is what I'm saying. But in order to depict that, I think having an understanding of anatomy I saw this meme that was, you know, it's funny to, I guess, to reference memes as any kind of authoritative source. It's not really, but obviously, but it made the point, I guess I'd say, of the artist's rendition, and it was a skull of a hippo, and the rendition was this, crazy dinosaur. Um, what would you call it? Kind of just fantasy monster. But in reality, that is not how that comes together at all, right? Um, so understanding how bone structures work, and kind of just looking at existing animals that we know about, um, and can study, gives us a good baseline for how to construct imaginary things. I used to have a much more of an interest in creature design. It never really panned out. Early on, that was kind of like my main interest. I'd say I was just drawing monsters all the time, and I think part of it for me was that you can't really be wrong, or at least so I thought. Like, you just kind of let it happen, and if it's this crazy, unbelievable monster, then well, it's fantasy. It's I meant for it to be that way, right? But I think what you've alluded to is something that I came to realize, that, like, well, no, it actually kind of has to follow a certain form and certain conventions that um, make it believable, so that we can look at that and say, oh, I understand how this thing works. Or not necessarily that the common viewer would have that um, exact thought pattern, but subconsciously we accept things that are within the realm of possibility, right? So it's really difficult to accept something as a believable alien uh, anatomy if it has the musculature in all the wrong places for how it's supposed to function. There's that idea, that mantra, that form follows function, and so you kind of figure out how it's supposed to work, what it's supposed to do, what kind of environment it lives in, and then that kind of informs the anatomical requirements, right? If that makes any sense. So there is a whole art form to that, dedicated to understanding animals and nature, and then applying principles to creature design for sci-fi and fantasy. I don't like that. Terrell Whitlatch. Right. Absolutely. You ever see Wayne Barlow's Expedition? I can't say that I've seen that. Terrell Whitlatch. Her approach is mainly to twist Earth life, which is good, but I think the approach I would like to take is more of an environmental niche. I feel like I've thought very far ahead of my skill level. Like my ambitions sound kind of grandiose compared to my current abilities, not to sound conceited. Um, I actually, I think that that is actually kind of normal. Uh, not to put you in this camp of saying like, oh no, everyone's like that. Not everyone is like that, but I think in the arts, um, the vision of what could be and what you'd like to see and what you are able to execute on don't always line up. In fact, I'd say I don't want to say most of the time don't line up, but I think for a lot of artists, that is a part of the struggle, right? Is it's like I know what I want to do, or I can, or it just seems just out of reach of what I could accomplish and what the kind of project that I could be pulling off. I think that's the thing that pushes us forward to learn new things, to keep being an artist, right? Like if you could just say whatever you wanted to say, then you would just do it and be done. But there's more, right? And I think it's partly human nature wanting to learn and progress and grow. And then I don't know how much of it, psychologically speaking, is kind of like the ego and the id, like the thing that you know you could be and want to be, the standard that you're aiming for, and then the thing that you actually are, right? It's like the ideal versus um, the creature of habit, right? That isn't going to reach the ideal unless it's brought into uh, even disciplined, right? Brought into some kind of uh, useful direction. So no, I don't think that that's. Wouldn't say that you're unreasonably ambitious or something. I would say that that's part and parcel of wanting to do anything, to reach a little bit higher than what you would if you put no effort in at all, right? Um, I think that's a normal and a good thing. Well, so anyway, the ambition of doing things differently, not just adapting, you know, known things to to be believable. Though I think there's a good case for that. One case is not simply to say this is what alien life would look like because this is what we observe, right? It's not simply that. It's partly what are we willing to accept in, to communicate an idea to an audience that has not done all the research, that you intend to do, or has not viewed this in the way that you are viewing it. What common lingo do you have, right? And that's, I think, partly where some of those things come in. Like, we understand pretty intuitively, what makes a bug, or what makes a deer, right? But when you start to study those things, then you start to see like, oh, like there's these couple things that if I get this joint backwards on this deer leg, the illusion completely disappears. And that's, I think, partly technical, like what constitutes this, the subject, like what makes a deer is learning about deer anatomy, but it's more than that. It's what thing, if I bend this rule, if I bend this, natural rule in nature that is saying, this is the way that the hind legs are structured, and if I mess with that structure too much, the untrained eye will immediately see it and discount it as false. It's a counterfeit. That's not the real thing. And so that's a force to be reckoned with. Now, is it a worthy endeavor to try to come up with something that doesn't just follow a formula? I think absolutely that's or doesn't follow the known formula, I guess I would say. I think that's worthy, but it'd probably be better to know something about it, to learn about the convention before you attempt to break it or figure out how to break it. It's almost like it would be a difficult endeavor to challenge something that you don't know in depth. That makes sense. Knowing it equips you to reconsider it, to redefine it. too much of that. I was trying to use that lighter color to kind of create a shape leading the eye, you know, in this S-curve thing, but I went too far. Went too far. I think I broke it. Now there is weeping and gnashing of teeth. Okay, I'll probably do like an overlay. Color balance curves, all that good stuff. Don't like that. Blue, I think. Put a light value. Hmm. Trying to push this. Without being too jumpy, which we are being right now. Jumping all over the place with these lights and darks. We come together. Thank you. I don't know. Riffing off an idea, and I definitely think there are things I'd like to address in it. But I do think the overlay is helping quite a bit. Let's clean up some of these areas back here. Hmm. Well, I think regardless of where I feel we're at with this, time is running short. Let's see. I was using this as kind of like a fog layer color. I don't know if that's really the effect we're gonna get out of that, especially being that it's so green. Hmm. Let's do... I don't like this whole portion up here. Probably would want to do something with that, but probably another time. But I think for now, I will do a color balance and a curves. And then probably call it a night. I guess we'll pause it there. I don't know that that does a lot. I might just we'll do a solid color fill as an overlay. And then we'll adjust this. Okay, let's go with blues. I think maybe the deep reds aren't really helping very much. But the rest of it I'm liking pretty well. Hmm. All right, whenever I'm done butchering this painting, so we can do a wrap up. Well, I always want to see what can be done with just a little bit of help from a adjustment layer. Well, I think we'll pause here. I can fiddle with adjustment layers all day, but I think what I really need is to look at this with fresh eyes. There's a few things I'm seeing already that are like, okay, I could maybe push some of these lights into, a more neutral blue-gray, and then preserve just this value right here, the brightest, just for a few points, rather than being kind of spread around and determined by the curves layer, by the adjustment layers. But I think that's about all the energy I've got for tonight. So I'm going to call it here. Thank you for joining in. Thank you, Dino Blaster, for the conversation. It was good. Appreciate it. And hopefully you got something useful, beneficial out of the conversation. And I think that's going to do it for tonight. Thank you for joining in. And have a great night.